welcome to our workshop about evaluations tonight. I'm very happy, in spite of this not being a stand-up Monday, that some of you could make it. We also have a guest from another club who was kind enough to try and see whether we could have her to deliver a speech. That would be a contest speech, if I understand well, that you would like to rehearse. So the bonus for you, Juliet, will be that you will get a number of evaluations in a group evaluations that we will run at the end of this session. So why are we here and what are we doing tonight? There's different reasons that I want to explain to you what's going on. This workshop tonight is the last step for me to achieve the status of Distinguished Toastmaster. Part of the whole process that was before Pathways, one needed to deliver workshops or different kind of activities related to Toastmasters. And then when I look at the list, and there was this workshop about the art of effective evaluation, I said, look, we have a new club, we just chartered. I think this is the best thing that we can do for the club is to run a workshop dedicated to the evaluation, concept mind. And this is what we will do tonight. So after this will be done and validated, plus a couple of other things that are happening behind the scenes, I should be getting the Distinguished Toastmaster, and it will be a true pleasure of getting it for this club, which we all started together and make it happen. So, yay! That's very good. Let's get started with how this workshop will work and what is it that we will be doing. Let me start first, before I change slide. What is your perspective on evaluations in general? And let me take the question in a different spin, and I'd like to ask some of you. When you come to a Toastmaster meeting and you see evaluations being done, what does that mean for you as a participant to the meeting? How do you see the importance, if any, of evaluations? Does anyone have an answer?
Maybe.
Yes, like?
To get a good feedback on what's going on.
Feedback? Mm-hmm.
Then to compare with something which is attended and something which is provided. Someone that runs the hands too much, shake out that he has corrected his hand position.
So somebody with more experience can give information regarding how a speech went. Yes. Anything else that comes to mind?
As an auditor, if you are part of the audience, what brings me a lot to hear what other people think of the speech. Sometimes I have some opinion, what was good, what was not good, what could be improved, and then I hear the comments of the evaluators that underline the points that were very good, for instance, and that I didn't notice. And that's I can pick up on that to improve my following the speeches.
Okay. What's interesting from what I hear from you is that so far it's mostly been about the speaker itself. But who others benefits from evaluation?
We learn from the experience of others. So we don't need to make, let's say, the experience directly. We can learn from the experience of others. So it's also an improvement for all the audience. That is how I feel.
Absolutely.
So
well, it's the club as a whole which benefits in a way. Every participant to the meeting, in spite of them just being a participant without an active role even, they will listen and they will hear, provided that they know what active listening is, and get something in for themselves. Because they were there, they saw the speech, they then see the evaluation, and they can integrate the information coming from the two.
I guess it's helpful for the evaluator as well, because it's in between a prepared speech and an improvised speech. And on top of that, the evaluator also has to use some emotional intelligence to deliver the negative feedback in a tactful way.
Benefits to evaluations are for everyone. They clearly are for the speaker, because that's what the feedback loop closure is all about. That is obvious, isn't it? As we said at the very beginning. But then it's also about the evaluator and the improvement that the evaluator himself or herself will have the moment his or her knowledge about how to become a better communicator increases. And it increases not only by speaking, in fact, I think it increases a little less than by speaking than what it does increase by listening. And listening is sometimes more difficult than speaking. And of course the club benefits, because the club benefits by having a higher standard. If we get to a level where we can have a higher standard of evaluations, with better evaluations, and we can be creative, and preparing this workshop, a few ideas came to mind on how we can do things slightly differently in the future. Just to throw something, how about if some evenings, when, say, we only have 2 speeches ready, which can happen, how about if we have more than one person deliver an evaluation on the same speech? That could be an interesting thing. How about if we do a group evaluation, where everyone can chime in and chip in with their view on the speech statements? So this workshop actually opened my mind to a number of different things that I think would be interesting also in being implemented by the club as a whole. Let me see if the remote works. It seems like it doesn't. Well, it did. Yeah, now it did. So tonight we're here because we want to recognize the purpose and value of effective evaluation, the art of effective evaluation. That's the title of the workshop. We want to discover ways we can improve our evaluation skills, both individually and for the benefit of the club as a whole. And particularly the last point, to stimulate group discussion on a subject of vital concern to our club. And that is what we will do as, towards the end of the workshop tonight, we will hear Juliette deliver her speech, and then we will have a group discussion in which we will try to implement what was discussed during this session. We're not many, by the way. If there is any question that might come up, I think we do have enough time to address them individually as they come up. So feel free to be asking questions should you have any. Why do people want to learn to speak? In public, in general, because we learn how to speak when we're little. Well, there's many reasons. And there's more than a few. There's another slide that talks about it. Do you recognize yourself here in some of the reasons that made you come to Toastmasters in the first place? Earn credit towards recognition. That's a very Toastmastery thing, because we improve over time with the awards we get, with winning the little contest or award we do every evening. But also, meet a specific need. If you get a job change and in the job you'll be speaking more in front of an audience of customers or partners, surely improving your public speaking capabilities will help you. So nothing new there, right? Definitely pleasure. And pleasure is a very tricky one, because pleasure comes out not only within ourselves, but also within the environment in which we speak. And that's where this ties in very nicely with the club. Because if we do not end up having an environment where we do seek a conducive environment to hearing and feeding information back that will make people grow, will make people learn, and not will then be rejecting that. And that is actually dangerous. You might upset people. You might have people turn away from what we do. So that pleasure part includes also the growth, because with growth come pleasure. In general, that's how it works. Okay. Building self-esteem and self-confidence are very much related, I think, to that growth. The more we grow, the more we can challenge ourselves, the better we become. And it's a self, if you will, reinforcing upward spiral that we as humans, not even just as a speaker, we as humans improve by being here. With acceptance and esteem from others, for sure. I don't even just think about contest, being a contest or things like that. This is about, and you've proven it to me, because Marie and I were the most, if you will, seasoned Toastmasters in terms of experience. But all of you, we've seen your growth. We've seen literally starting from zero, in most cases, all the way up to a level. After a couple of years now, I can see that, I'm very proud, like I said the other evening, because of the net benefit that I see in this growth. Okay. So this is pretty clear, in a way. There's nothing strange and nothing new in here. Other than the remote doesn't really work well. So. Now, how do we improve as speakers through time? And that's important. There's some of you here who have yet to do the icebreaker, some who have just done it. But in the end, improving is about changing your behavior. And changing your behavior is coming to Toastmasters for the first time, is becoming a member, is enjoying what's going on. It's very different, it's strange, it's new faces, new people. And then you change your behavior and you say, okay, you know what? A couple of times on a Monday evening, I can go there. It doesn't cost that much money. How about if I go there? And then, guess what? This is a public speaking thing, right? So you will be faced with the decision to do your speech. Maybe your icebreaker speech, right? So kind of normal, doesn't it? And then what happens is you do your speech. And then you proceed to the next level where that feedback closure, that loop that closes on you as a speaker through the evaluation, and not only through the evaluation, through the little forms that I think we should push more as a tool for everyone to feed information back to the speaker, will make you improve. And this is if the speaker wants to improve based on the feedback that he receives. But I think that by way of the structure Toastmaster meetings work, I am pretty confident that only those who know that they can improve because they will hear the feedback from others will become members. The others will go away. The others will not see benefit, maybe. Maybe they're right. Maybe they're already great speakers and it's good enough for them. I'm happy for them. I was already a pretty good speaker, but I saw an immense benefit in practicing more, because you forget about the content, you know that. You only focus on the tools, you only focus on the way you use your body, your voice, your hands, your gestures, your devices and electronic tools, and you make the best out of it. So that feedback then is very important if, of course, is implemented in what? In the next speech. So again, change your behavior. Heck, I've done my icebreaker. That was pretty cool. I even got that little certificate thing. How about if I plan the next one? Oh, by the way, they fed me back some information. How about if I integrate the information in? And by the way, I love that in Pathways, beyond your first speech, the icebreaker, you immediately have evaluation and feedback. And some of you actually took that very seriously, thinking, Salome, you did the exact same speech. You did it twice because you followed precisely what the project said, which is to implement the feedback that you received on your second speech, the first in the evaluation and feedback project, and implemented it in the second run of your speech. And then they ask you to be an evaluator. By the way, is there a minimum experience, a minimum level of experience needed in order to be an evaluator? What must you be in order to be an evaluator? Does anyone have an idea?
User?
the only thing you need. You don't need to be experienced. You don't need to be, you need to be there. You need to be the moment the speech is done in front of you. By the way, with the fact that we take video, you can even do feedback back to those speakers, even if you weren't there. Of course, it's a camera, it's slightly different, but this is a benefit that not many clubs decide to have. And I was very keen to keep this. It comes from EPFL, Juliet knows this really well, because looking at you through the eyes and the lens of the camera is a different thing. So anyone can be an evaluator. So this workshop is also an upward push for you guys to be more involved in becoming evaluators and in testing you out as a Toastmaster, in becoming a better Toastmaster by doing more evaluations. And of course, you know, the feedback loop here goes on and on and on. This is what Toastmaster is all about. And this is going through projects and then starting to include some of that leadership, because hey, this part here about feedback, it is leadership. It is you taking a role and working it out with your speaker and the Toastmaster of the day, the Vice President of Education, to make sure that something good will happen out of that. So that's, in a way, a feedback loop. It could actually be seen literally as a loop, but they decided to put it horizontally like this. An improvement here is the name of the game. Now, 3 roles of an evaluator. One is, you know, I'd say, hopefully it will come, that of the motivator. If you have an evaluator which goes on stage and smashes you and destroys you as a speaker, doesn't really work all too well. That is why an evaluator must know not only how to evaluate a speech, but also how to present the results of his thinking that are crystallized in a 2 to 3 minutes presentation, so that the speaker will react in the most appropriate way. It can be a facilitator, because by the experience that every one of us, every evaluator has, and can share on stage, that could be a facilitation towards getting on the next palier, getting on the next step of the ladder up, so that everyone can challenge themselves the next time to do things slightly different. And that is a facilitator role, which, by the way, doesn't end with the evaluation speech. Remember, the evaluator is a club member like you are. And I'm sure that if you go and speak one-to-one with the evaluator at the end of the session where you deliver the speech, you will hear more than what he could say in the 3 minutes he had at his disposal. Not only that, you will hear things that maybe he didn't want to say in public, because saying certain things in public might not be valuable. And that's the style that each evaluator should always remember to apply. And that is very important. You know, praise in public, and you know, things that should be a little bit of a concern, tell them in private. So I always encourage evaluators and speakers to go and speak one-to-one at the end of the meeting, because that's where you have a higher level of integration, I could say, between what the speaker did and what the evaluator could do in the 3 minutes, so that the speaker will benefit even more. Now, counseling. Okay, to some degree I can take that view. I think that goes also with the motivational part. But remember that evaluators can also be mentors, and they could actually mentor specifically speakers on ways to improve, and maybe out of a good evaluation there might be a new mentorship that could start within the club. And nobody, although we do not yet have a full-fledged mentorship program, there are people already who are mentoring one another, that's for sure, and we like that. So that idea of providing some counseling to especially younger and less experienced speakers is of course very, very important. Any questions you might have on this? I think it's pretty straightforward. You're experienced enough, I would say, at this time. Now, I'd like to test you out on something here. You've been members for a while, some of you are relatively recent members, but at least you've been to a number of meetings. You know, I'd say that the minimum you've been, I think, Lidio, you'll be the youngest one in terms of membership. You've been at least 4 or 5 meetings like that. So you've seen a number of evaluations of that. So you know how things go in this club. And I've prepared a form that I'd like you to fill in. It's on one side in English and on the other in French. I'm not going to give it to you, you know what? Because you're not a club member here. So you would not know what you feel. Actually, you can have one and think about it if that's it. So one side is in English, the other side is in French. So tell me what you want to do in the other language. Because I'm curious. I'm curious to know what is your view on how you do evaluations today. So what is the climate of evaluation today? Because as I said, since the club has a role to play within the framework of evaluations, we really must strive to improve all of the aspects about evaluations. So feel free to take a few minutes to read it, and if you have any questions, I'll check it out myself. I think I have not done it, so I could actually do it myself.
So 1 is the highest, right?
Correct. It's actually weird when I checked it out. I'm like, what? But yes, 1 is the highest and 5 is the lowest. So towards the left you have the best situation, towards the right you have the least interesting. Okay. Who needs a little more time here to go through? Okay. I'll start with a question to you. Did anyone here find something that is clearly deficient, more towards number 5, something all the way down towards the right side.
Just minor point, it's on the consideration point.
Mm-hmm.
I put it level 4
Mm-hmm.
because one time I suggested that whenever somebody is going to make a presentation, that person should say how many speeches they've done, so we get a sense of experience. And the more experienced the person is, the feedback can be tougher. But if the person is very new to this exercise, we need to be more to facilitate the process.
Yes. There's another aspect to it. You know, the younger in terms of club experience someone is, the less well you know the person. And so we do not know the personalities and how people are, how people react to evaluation. And that, of course, is sometimes problematic. The answer to that, and I had put a 3 there myself, it's consideration. In French, it's consideration. I put it in the middle because I think we're not doing bad, but I think we can improve, especially in the contact prior to the meeting between the evaluator and the speaker. And we'll get to that because that's really important. Especially because speakers can ask evaluators specifically to look for some things that they know they can improve on. Maybe they are trying something new in their speech, and they can specifically ask for feedback on some specific topic. So the personal goals, level of experience, and sensitivity is also something that can actually be influenced by the speaker itself, because I really like to think that the speaker leads the evaluator towards the direction that the speaker needs to get an evaluation, if you see what I mean. Yes, Steve?
I do have a very naive question, probably because I'm the youngest member here. So when you are actually, so you want to give us a speech and you pick your evaluator, or does the evaluator pick?
Very good question. At first, and Marie, you might interject any comments on consideration. We, if you want to, c'est pas obligatoire. It's of course a matter of knowing who comes at the meeting, and that is why I always emphasize, please let us know if you're coming to the meeting or not, because the earlier we know who we can match, and sometimes you see that some evaluators are turned from evaluator number 2 to number 3 and all of that, because we like to mix and match in the best possible way, given the experience of the speaker and evaluator. Now, for an icebreaker, we will not put a first-time evaluator in general. I would say, maybe it happened, because this is a new club, you know, at some point at the very beginning, everyone was kind of new, so it was very difficult to do it. But in general, we try and match accordingly, so that you would have somebody with a little experience in order to deliver an evaluation. Now remember, evaluation and feedback, the second project at level 1 in Pathways, after the second and third speech you will do, you will become an evaluator yourself. So they will now, I like it of Pathways, they will test you out as an evaluator very, very soon in the process. So I think that's a good thing, but it's a very good question, in fact. So, any other comments? Because I have one that struck me a little. Conformity. Do I establish? Yes. Marie.
With evaluation, on what you can ask to any member on the club. So for the day where you make your speech, you can show your evaluator, but you can ask to any member in the group on that way. You say, can you give me your evaluation? Once the member can give you some prize. For example, I made a prize to Marisol, but I don't think she saw that.
You mean the comment? You mean the form, or?
But you will see that in my educational
So Marie will have an educational section about pathways and evaluation on the 6th of April. I think you decided it today, right? I saw you changing some things in Easy Speak
Yes.
just today.
Yes, it will be the 6th.
Yeah, 6th of April. Where was I? Conformity. Do established patterns of behavior inhibit evaluators? It's a very strange question for a new club, I think, because I don't know that there is something that is not written but it happens automatically. You know, these are established patterns are, oh, it's always been like this is the way it is, and we can't change it. Do you feel this? Do you see any of this in this club? I'm curious. Do you see any difference? Because your case is interesting. You know, you are a dual member with another very established club here in Lausanne. Do you see a difference there in that respect?
Only the long way it is bilingual, but also voice process is very similar.
Pretty much. Good. Good. Because I haven't seen much of it really. It's nothing that I've been exposed to in a way that would be, oh gosh, I'm not really feeling well. I probably would not stay long in that club if it would be the case, I think. All right, I'll collect them. So please collect them, and I'm curious, I'll tabulate the results to see whether there is any trend. You don't need to put any name on it or anything. We can then further discuss. Should there be anything worth discussing? And if you have any comments or anything, if you want to write something, you know my email, right? So.
Can we get them afterwards so keep them? These ones, the evaluations, do you collect them now?
Yes, you want to keep it?
Yeah, because that is interesting.
Yeah, if you want to take a picture with your phone and give me the picture, or do the opposite, give the paper and send me the picture. Entirely to you. No, so I can keep track and have an idea, but I don't want to know who. I mean, I'm more interested in seeing the perspective on the different questions. That's what I meant. Okay, let's move along on the slides. And talk a little about self-esteem, okay? Because there was a hint about it. Self-esteem is something that is a difficult topic, and it's something that's, well, but she's EPFL, who is that? Actually, living
You
in
want,
living in-
because I can write it there for you.
Yeah, but unless you want to keep it, that's fine. We should speak about it later, because I know that well. Thank you. No, but I don't want that the average gets, twisted by another club. It's a different club, and things can be slightly different.
No, but if you wanted to make a comparison, I could have written, EPFL so that you know it's a part of this class.
So, self-esteem, when people come here for the first time, in the very first meetings, I'm actually interested in knowing from a relatively recent member, you, Sebastian, but you were already in a club, so you've seen this and you've been through at least a couple of clubs, right? This is your third club.
No, 2 clubs, but it was for 2 years in Budapest.
Okay.
And it was a very long established club there, so it's,
Did you feel coming here that the way the club accepted a new member, somebody who would be interested in becoming a new member, something that would boost your self-esteem, or something that would be, wouldn't change it much, or something that would drag? I'm like, God, yeah, I want to improve Toastmasters, but did you perceive anything specific related to your self-esteem coming here and taking roles?
well, I mean, this feeling has been very positive, and that's one of the key elements of Toastmasters, as you mentioned, because you want to come here to improve. And the first feeling that you have is that will be people judgmental, or will be people more, let's say, supportive. And that is one of the key elements of the, and as I here, I have the feeling of supporting it. And when you mentioned about conformity one, it was also important because I don't feel there is any conformity in the sense that people don't feel restrained to give
Correct.
positive feedback. So that's
It's very good.
so just sharing my, the Budapest one was excellent as well.
Yeah, it's always very difficult to compare, especially with things that are in the past, because we were also different ourselves in, say, a different phase of life, and also it's more about how you perceive things coming here. That's
I want to share also something. We are
Yes.
both Italian. And there was a friend of mine from Budapest that spent one semester in Italy. And actually in one club, there was a feedback that was very harsh. The culture of the club was to give harsh feedback, because it was, oh, you need to improve, and like this. And he said, guys, it doesn't work like this. That is because that is not how you improve. that is, so there are clubs where the harsh is part of the culture, and so that it happens. That is what I want to share. So,
interesting feedback. And I would be curious, I don't need to know any details, of course, I would be curious to know if that club has different officers rotating,
I don't know.
or it's the same group of 5 friends that have been knowing each other for 10 years that keep changing roles within the officers, because that tells a difference. That, and I've seen it in some clubs. Sometimes that doesn't give that new breath of fresh air that you need in order to spice things up and to make things improve further. Because I strongly believe in cooperation among individuals who are willing and capable, and that is why, I'm not breaking any huge news, but I do not intend to be president next year. I want to see others grow into the position of president for next year, because I think I've done quite something, and it's time for others to start and to take the role of president, with me helping, because I will still be an officer. I would love to be helping as an immediate past president and a mentor or whatever it needs, but to not still, be in the command seat again, because in a way, I don't have much to learn anything more about being a president and a founding member and the co-sponsor and getting DTM and all that. I can set myself aside and see others grow and help others grow. That's what I'm doing with this club. So hopefully this doesn't come as no, I'm not leaving. I'm sticking around. But I think it's healthy that clubs renovate themselves and change. So, Emmanuel or Nathalie, any feedback you might have on the self-esteem part related to this club and coming to this club? I'm thinking, Nathalie, because you've done your icebreaker and you've won best speech that evening, and was it good? How did it make you feel?
Je peux dire en français.
Vas-y, pas de souci.
Disons que oui, ça m'a apporté une certaine estime de moi-même, étant donné que j'ai dû m'exprimer devant tout le monde et que finalement j'ai eu des bons retours, hein, et puis des conseils aussi. Donc
Voilà.
je trouve ça vraiment bien.
That's the spirit. That's Toastmaster spirit, and we want to keep it like this. And if I'm not doing it like that, let me know, because that's not how I want to see things in this club. So self-esteem fuels personal growth. That's basic. Without self-esteem, you're like slouching. You're not doing much. Now, feedback reinforces personal growth as long as the feedback enables you. And I'm looking at you, Giuseppe, because I've heard about certain feedback you received recently and all that.
Yeah.
And that, we'll speak about it, that, not specifically about your case, but we can speak about how those things might happen. Because receiving only harsh feedback on things that are not essential and not even important related to how one went on stage and delivered a speech can be dreadful, can actually be, as I said, something that might make people stop going to club meetings. And we don't want that. Because in the end, if feedback doesn't reinforce personal growth, we're back at square one, and yeah, people will slouch and stop coming to meetings. Then, with only 2 meetings in a month, you skip one meeting, and then it's already been 1 month between the last meeting and the next one. And a month is a long period of time. And these things we need to practice, and we need to keep ourselves on our toes. Right? And personal growth nourishes self-esteem. Because we can change. Who here thinks that things are the way they are and nothing can change? No, there's two views of the world in a way. And there's a wonderful book that I've read about mindset that puts the fixed mindset versus the growth mindset one against the other.
What's the name of the book?
Carol Dweck, Mindset. I'll let you know. It's a wonderful book. I've read it not long ago. Carol Dweck, who's at Stanford, a psychologist at Stanford, wrote this a few years ago, and it's a wonderful book. Now, yes.
Have you got some examples where practicing with low issues of self-esteem is when we have new members, whenever they ask a question, they tend to apologize first for asking the question. But actually, it's pretty normal to ask those questions. We are here to share information. So that's where we see that the more advanced people come, they stop apologizing and they go straight to the point because they feel more comfortable.
True, to a big degree, but you will see that sometimes that behavior of apologizing, you might see that even in elder people and in older Toastmasters, because sometimes it's ingrained with who we are, because that links back to how we were brought up as kids in our families, or within the environment of the school or the boarding school, God forbid, or something that might have had an impact which literally gave us some deep imprint within ourselves that makes us say sorry as the first thing. There's a lot of people that, literally, you see them on stage and they're not out there the way they should be. Toastmasters can help, but we surely cannot fix things so deeply. It's also part of the evaluator role to read the person a little, to understand who you have in front of you, and to match your feedback based on who you have in front, especially for first time. As I said, delivering an evaluation for an icebreaker, it's not an easy job because you're giving your first ever feedback to a relatively recent member, and it can actually be quite, walking on eggs. You need to be very careful with what you say, and the person is a relatively inexperienced speaker anyway, and something might have gone wrong, and you have to judge and value whether this is worth bringing up or not. So self-esteem surely plays a big role in going on stage in the first place, but that's why we have the safe environment we have, because it doesn't matter if you're inexperienced, you can always try things out, and if it doesn't work well, you have many more speeches to improve. That's exactly what we do. So this is a self-reinforcing loop if taken the right way. More self-esteem generates more growth. It's fuel that fires the whole thing in a positive way. But any one of these steps can actually break down the whole process, and that's what happens when you see people who stop coming sometimes to meetings. And I think, and I have a memory of some of Juliette, you know him really well, Richard, past president last year, he stopped coming at some point. And I was the vice president of education at the club, and at some point I made a point of who is not coming for a while, who's missed at least 3 meetings or 4 meetings, and contact each and every one of them individually, first by email and then by phone, to see what was going on. Is there a problem? Is there? And he was just busy with his PhD and he stopped coming. And then I said, look, we saw you, but you haven't done a speech yet. How about if you come? He's done a wonderful icebreaker. I became his mentor. And then I convinced him that he could be running for becoming the next president of the club, which he did. And he was a really good president. And being on stage, introducing, every session like that as a president, and having that responsibility on your shoulder, he grew a lot. And I think if you ask him today, that call, that email that I sent him, made his life change. And it was me as VP wondering why Richard, whom I remember, came only a few times, became a member, and then stopped coming. What was the reason? In that case, it was nothing related to Toastmasters. But becoming better friends, personal friends with members in general, it's something that I value a lot. And just, when we go to the pizza place at the end of the session, it's something that actually cements friendships in a much deeper way. The Christmas party and all of what we've done there, these are also wonderful examples of this, because there's a personal and feelings-based aspect of all of this that we do within this room that has an impact which is difficult to estimate.
To say
Yes.
something about that, because when I joined EPFL Toastmaster Club the first time, it was not about the officer at that moment, but the member. They were very nice, very smart, very brilliant speakers, and for me it was kind of intimidating this first time. And I said, I'm going to step back a little bit, try to work on my own before I go back, because if not, I'm going to be shy all the time and I will never dare to speak in front of them. They were amazing speakers. I think you know most of them, Luca. You were here, there was Krista, there was this former president, there were Jan, and all these speakers, amazing speakers. And when I came back, speakers are always amazing, but there are more people of my profile, I would say, that need to practice, and that's also important in a club when you arrive first. If everyone is perfect speaker from the top speaker, it's difficult for you to...
You say something that resonates with me a lot, and with those who've been here since the very beginning, for Marisol, Maria especially. Salome, you've joined not long thereafter. It was amazing to see, and Laurent as well, you joined relatively early, to see how, at the beginning, how it was difficult sometimes because of this, because there were so many new faces in, and when I was evaluating, or Marie was evaluating, it was tough, but it made people grow really fast, because within a new club, there's no alternative. Whereby in an established club, you would have different levels, but universities in the world, because you have semesters, you have people that come and go.
But I think it's good to have different level and to maintain that, because that way the newcomers, they can find people they can relate to, not only top of the top best speaker, but you arrive and say, can I do? I mean, to have people that start at the same time as you, that's important.
Another thing that we do in Toastmasters, although there are none around here, is to have advanced clubs. So clubs where only advanced Toastmasters, people who have, in general, the bar will be set at a competent communicator. It could be, I don't know, anyone whose pathway is level 3 and above, or level 4 even. That could be a prerequisite for being part of an advanced club. An advanced club normally has slightly different meetings, only once a month in general, and it's only something that when there is a number of really advanced Toastmasters can make sense in a geographical area. So far, there's been, Karina and I have been discussing toying with the idea, but we do not have a critical mass about it yet. So we will always be in clubs where there's people who are more experienced and then a lot of newcomers, first timers. But that's part of, and it's of course the continuous change of people who are not renewing and new members. We just got another one member just registered him yesterday. So 29 members in this club. Okay. As an evaluator, one of the things that you can do in order to nourish the self-esteem of your speaker you're evaluating on the other side, what can you do and what you should not do? And I think the first one is self-evident. Be genuine. If there's one thing that is easy to spot if you're not really genuine in what you say, whitewashing, that's how they call it, whitewashing something is not really a good thing to do. Now, I'm not saying that you should be harsh. In fact, if there is something that went not in the best way from the speaker, it's even more difficult to be an evaluator because you need to be also careful in how you present what happened to not disappoint the speaker, who probably is already bashing himself within himself and is already saying, oh, what have I done? What a disaster. And you need to uplift the person in spite of the fact that something wrong happened. How you do that? Being genuine, so recognizing what happened, but of course being very, very tactful. And tact is another very important aspect in evaluation. Recognizing strengths. So look at the positives. We speak about the sandwich technique in evaluation. Start with something positive, recognizing the strengths or improvements on the speaker, and then slide in the middle the room for improvement, something that could be improved in the next speech, and then close with another something good, and invite the person to, I look forward to your next speech. Because that is the way that we can convey some meaningful feedback to the speaker without being too harsh and slamming down the speaker. Creating a climate for motivation, that's exactly what we're talking about. So we must always be creating that connection with the speaker as an evaluator. And that motivation could actually be also that negative part of the speech. Because I know you can do better than that. And I've seen you doing something, but you could improve in doing that. And we'll get to shortly in how we could use words in order to make that happen. This is quite important. Now, this is the big one. And Juliette has been a victim of this. Avoid value judgment. When I say value judgment, avoid judging the person, for sure. Because we are who we are. We have our accents in our languages, and we have people who have more or less accents. Okay, that's who we are. Can we improve? Sure. Is this what Toastmasters is all about? No, this is not a language course. Yes, we have the evaluator, the grammarian, we have the accountant, sure. But this is not the place where somebody might nitpick on your French accent, which pollutes English. It's ridiculous. You would never do it, ever. Also, you're attacking the person directly. What does that? You're attacking the person directly by saying something like that. How is that person going to benefit from your attack? It's pointless. Same is, and that's also value judgment, do not focus on the content in itself. If you disagree with what the person says, I'll give you an example. I don't think that man-made climate change is a big issue. Personally, I don't think it's a big issue. It exists, yeah, okay, it's not a big issue. Would I evaluate somebody that says, oh, the world is a disaster, we're about to die, and all that? I would. But I would set aside my personal bias and my knowledge on the topic and would only focus on, not the content, but the way the speaker spoke about his content. So try and separate what the content of the speech is about from the tools that the speaker used in order to convey his or her message. Because we're not here to judge. We'll get to judging later. We're not here to judge the content. We're here to evaluate the speaker's use of the tools related to the project that the speaker has prepared. Because remember, it's all about what kind of project you're working on and what is the aim of the project that you prepared as a speaker. And we'll get to that also in the next slide. So provide positive direction. It's a direction we're aiming towards. It'll take a long time. It will take time to progress. It'll take the time you have available in your life and our life gives us in order to do this. But as an evaluator, please always think about forward motion. always think about the next step, because that will be again self-reinforcing in the eyes of our speaker. Now, I'm going to skip this because I've done it earlier. So, in terms of what we can do in order to build that positive environment within the club, such that the evaluations are positive, well, we're here because we like to emphasize quality evaluations. The net effect of this seminar is, again, giving an emphasis on how important evaluations are and motivating people, motivating new members to also challenge themselves, because you will be delivering a speech. You will be delivering a speech out of the evaluation that, well, on the speech that you listened just a few minutes earlier. So that's also a big challenge that individuals will have. Help members become better acquainted. You will start to learn about you as a listener, an active listener. And that's something that many people, well, it was said before, how this is important, how this is something that the club, in general, Toastmasters gives, is the opportunity to become better listeners. Put it to fruition, put it to practice. Okay. Assigning evaluators when assigning speakers, back to Lydia's question. How are we doing there? You tell us. I think we could improve. I would love that everyone would read the mailing lists that I send out, which are not many. I'm trying to reduce the number. I would love that everyone would use EasySpeak to plan their participation and to volunteer for roles. Not everyone does it. What can we do? We'll try our best. How can we make things improve? By motivating people. Maybe by giving them more reasons to do things that today they don't do. And us, the officers, are willing to hear any feedback you might have on doing anything that relates to the life of the club. I have to say the latest new club members that we have been amazing in terms of both their willingness to use right away the tools that we have on the web, and they've been really fast into keeping up with registering for pathways, what is this EasySpeak, what's the difference between one website and another. They've done it, very nicely. Marie is in the background pushing and helping and making sure that this happens. And it will pay dividends in the longer term, because that's what you need. You need that structure around the life of the club in order to only focus on your improvement. This is the last thing. What am I saying? Encourage dialogue between speakers and evaluators. How are we doing that? I think we're doing poorly. I think we can improve. And maybe it comes back to, if you can only define who the speaker and the evaluators are just right before the meeting, you're missing the time window of opportunity for the speaker and evaluator to send an email, have a phone call, discuss what is it that you, as a speaker, will need the evaluator to look for in your next speech. And these kind of discussions, because that is a very important part. Now, evaluate the evaluators. I have a note on this. When you're the general evaluator next time, please, 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 don't ever talk about the speeches. Because we heard already the evaluators talking about the speeches. Please don't. Talk about something else. Talk about maybe the evaluators. Do a little evaluation of the evaluators. Why not? Or do a little evaluation of the table topic speakers. By the way, evaluate the evaluators, we could add another line. Evaluate the table topic speakers. Some clubs have an evaluator for the table topics. One person that listens, they're relatively short speeches, there are not many. And the evaluator for the table topic speaker could then go on stage and deliver his or her evaluation of the table topic speeches. Why not? This could be something that we could introduce. It's up to us as a club to decide whether we want to do it or not. Okay. Encourage group evaluation. We'll do one tonight. we want to keep that, we could maybe give the option to a speaker to not be just evaluated by one person, but maybe by the group. That's something we could do. Or if, that could happen. I remember at least a couple of times back when the club was smaller in the other location, the evaluator didn't show up. Okay. Do the group evaluation, it's simpler.
This is the reason why every person has some papers or some comments, and
Yes.
even if you don't act as the evaluator, you can still provide feedback or
Correct.
comments. So in this way, it would simply be more formalized, but this medium of communication between the other members and the speakers is going through those forms.
The difference with a true group evaluation is that in a group evaluation, other people's ideas and feedback might spark new thoughts within you and new feedback that you might provide by raising your hand after you heard some other feedback. And you know what? We're active listeners. In a group evaluation, you heard the speaker, you hear other people evaluating that speech, and right there, right then, you also benefit directly, both as a speaker and as an evaluator like normal, and you can then interject with your feedback on that right there during the group evaluation. So there's a little more flexibility in a way. But we've not done that much, so it's up to us to decide whether we want to try some of that or not. But it's a very good point. The feedback form we should use more.
There's also the electronic version on Speakeasy. The feedback form, there's also the electronic version on Speakeasy.
Speak easy?
Easy Speak, sorry.
Okay, okay.
Easy Speak is also, you can also give feedback that way as well.
Yeah.
Easy Speak.
I have to tell you the story. My first club in Milan, the bilingual club, which sparked the idea of this club. Back then, we only had the competent communication manual, right? Competent communication manual was similar in a way, but slightly less complex than the pathways evaluation. It was one page at the end of the project. And what the speakers would do would be to photocopy 20 copies of that page and give it to every participant to the meeting. So they would get full feedback on different questions and maybe a 1 to 5 rating, depending on the project. And they would collect all of them from everyone. Of course, the real evaluator, the one that would get the evaluator role, would then go on stage, and based on what he wrote and the notes he took, he would deliver his spoken evaluation. But then they would get the feedback from everybody within the room, everybody who wanted to do it. How can we incentivize people to fill in more of those forms? Well, at least by printing them and bringing them to the meeting like I did last time that I forgot to print them. That can happen. But how to motivate people to do it more? I had an idea, which I think you implemented, and Maria, you were the previous Toastmaster. Have the Toastmasters do it themselves in front of everyone. So we're here, we have a minute to, do your feedback, and the Toastmasters will do it. It shows in your face that there is already, from the Toastmaster today perspective, that idea to feed the information back. So that's a possibility we have. Now, the last bit, emphasize manual speeches, that is, speeches that come from manuals, or in the case of pathways, that come from projects within pathways. It's never really been a problem with us, but in some clubs, they don't really follow the manuals at all. People just do speeches. They just go and do speech. And it occurred to me with the pathways transition that in some cases, people did speeches without even going online and checking out the content of the websites. Basecamp, that's the name of the pathways front end, the pathways interface. And you would not really be following the manuals. Somebody might give you a hint, the icebreaker is available for free, it's easy. But then with each project going down in complexity, you will need to stick to the manuals because pathways is a path that leads you on a specific path of projects that are mandatory, some projects that are elective, so you can choose which projects you want to follow in your own path to reach, presentation mastery, visionary communication, innovative planning. Those are things that took years in order to be implemented. So my suggestion is stick to pathways, stick to the website as best as you can, because there has been a lot of thinking behind the whole process. Marie, question?
Par rapport au fait de suivre la formation, la différence avant le parcours traditionnel, vous aviez un livre papier et il y a des gens effectivement qui pouvaient ne pas lire les indications et puis faire leur discours. Sur Pathway, vous pouvez essayer de faire ça, sauf que l'on doit, par rapport au club, on doit, en tant que VPE, je dois faire une approbation, je ne sais pas en français. Je dois faire une approbation comme quoi vous avez bien suivi le parcours, et ça je le vois, parce qu'en fait ça trace. Donc ça trace le nombre de fois où vous êtes allé voir la formation. Vous n'avez pas un livre physique, mais vous avez des flèches. Et puis, en fait, on voit le nombre de fois où vous êtes allé, le temps que vous y avez passé. Donc moi, je dois approuver en tant que VPE, et après, il y a le club central qui doit approuver. Si vous ne le faites pas aux différents niveaux, vous ne pouvez pas passer au niveau suivant. Donc, la différence, chacun fait comme il peut, ou comme il veut, c'est une association, en sachant que nous, en tant que responsables, on ne va pas approuver quelque chose qui n'a pas été fait, donc on va vous bloquer au niveau. Donc vraiment, suivez, vous pouvez effectivement faire comme chacun, enfin comme certains feraient, mais je vois pas l'intérêt de survoler les formations. Mais de toute façon, c'est franchement tracé le temps que vous avez mis. Donc ne vous sentez pas policé, parce que quelque part, chacun fait comme il veut. L'important, c'est que je ne vais pas aller derrière chaque membre lui expliquer qu'il faut tourner les flèches pour passer d'un niveau à l'autre. Donc je sais qu'il y a des gens qui sont visés ici. Je tiens à vous dire, donc après, avant d'envoyer au club central, on doit faire ça. Avant, on pouvait biaiser en disant j'ai vu le projet, j'ai vu le projet. Alors que là, vu que c'est informatique, c'est digital, on trace.
You have a question, Marie? The case I can give you is that, and I've helped, with this club, we didn't have pathways access at first, right? So I could download the PDF files of the second project, the third project, but then things changed because already at level 2, different paths of different projects, and things start to diverge. And it's impossible really to keep track of that. So, each and every one should actually be following the manuals, which in today's lingo, manual speeches equals base count equals pathways. So that's something that you should all be getting into really quickly. Now, briefly on the evaluation methods, the one we use the most is the tell and sell. It's very American. Tell and sell your point of view. That is, you heard the speech, you crafted your evaluation, you will go on stage, and you will deliver your evaluation, and there will be no feedback from the speaker. The speaker will just listen, and you, the evaluator, you will sell what you are telling the speaker about his speech. That's one way. It's not the only one. There could be a tell and listen. Something that we could try. What is tell and listen? What is the difference? Well, the time for the evaluation might be devoted in part to the evaluator delivering the evaluation towards the speaker, but then you would also give a little time to the speaker in order to give his feedback on what is heard. And then the evaluator will reply to the feedback and will close the evaluation. So you would keep it a little more open. There's a danger there that things can drag and take a longer time. But that's another interesting way of putting it. It's still a one-to-one thing. It would not be like a problem-solving evaluation where it's not a group evaluation really, but it's similar. in that you would have different questions put through to the group and questions in order to solve a problem. I don't know that the problem solving can fit within the times that we have available. I've read about it in the preparation of this workshop. I think it's the closest thing we have is the group evaluation, which I think is the approach that we could use and that we will use tonight. Problem solving is a mix between the tell and listen and the group evaluation. And I think in Italian we say it's neither fish nor meat, right? So it is a little in the middle, in my view. There's nothing that I would recommend. So, and this is also open to you, Marie, as VPE. Do you want to keep the tell and sell method? Do we want to try the tell and listen in some cases? We could. It's entirely up to us. Again, this is the club growing out of the normal standard way that we do things. That's what we've always done. We could change things. We could spice things up a bit. It's no problem. It's up to us to decide if and how to do it. Now, when it comes to be an effective evaluator, an evaluator that would actually do beneficial evaluations towards the speaker, what are 10 behaviors? Now, you see 5 here. I'll show that you care. It is about being honest. It is about, as we said before, telling the truth. But telling it in a way that, of course, conveys that positive message, that reinforcement of the self-esteem that every speaker needs. But be careful in doing that. As I said, it is very much a psychological effort in order to nicely match with who the speaker is, and of course, the level of knowledge and experience that the speaker has. So suit the evaluation to the speaker and to the situation the speaker is in. And I watched a couple of these seminars online, and a good example was someone whose father passed away not long before the meeting. The person that came to the meeting again and delivered a speech. And, the speaker was still touched by the situation, by what happened to him. And the evaluator would not recognize this. Maybe he didn't know, in fact he did know, but he was brash to a point of being, outside of what a normal person would do when you have empathy. And not having empathy as an evaluator is not going to do you good. You always need to use quite a bit of empathy when you're an evaluator. So be in tune with the situation the speaker is in. And of course that you only know when you speak directly. So that getting in touch with the speaker is all the more important here. As much as is learn the speaker's objectives. That is the preparation that you as an evaluator would need to do by knowing what project is the speaker going to be speaking from. Is it the first, the second speech within the project? And is there a specific aim that the speaker has vis-a-vis what the project says, the objectives are, and what are the personal objectives that the speaker has within this project? Again, it goes back to communication before the meeting between the speaker and the evaluator. Listen actively. Not much to add here. But the 5th one is important. Personalize your language. And when we say personalize in this case, you see the examples right now. It is about giving your personal feedback, your personal point of view on what you've seen on stage. Because each individual would have a different point of view, because we're all different. We were there in the room, and somebody else being on stage to deliver the evaluation, something else will come out. And that's normal, and that is okay too. But do not, as a speaker, rather as an evaluator, do not make the mistake to go on a one-to-one battle against your speaker by putting the speaker against phrases such as, you should have, you failed to, or your opening was. Do you see how this is a direct, in a way, attack towards the speaker? It looks like it's a finger-pointing exercise where what you have done, well, how about if you personalize the point of view of what you have perceived as an evaluator that is a listener to the speech? How it made you feel, what my reaction was to the specific case, to the specific phrase, as the example you use. Or does it appear to me that, or I felt that you. So put your own self within. Tell the story as you've seen it, and do not generalize things. Speak in your first person. Okay? I took a note out of listening to another webinar which I thought was interesting. You should give reasons why, and suggestions how. That's the second part, that's providing the feedback, right? So in this case, the reasons why are more into how you have felt, how you have seen things happening on stage from the speaker. So another good example here in personalization of the language. It is about providing the feedback. And it is about, I suggest that you would do this. Okay? Again, taking that personal aspect up front. I think your next speech will have a stronger impact on me, not on everyone. I can't speak for everyone, I can speak for myself. If you would do this. But again, speak about your own self first. And then you could say something about you, a story about yourself. A technique I found helpful is, so you're putting yourself in the speaker's feet. You're telling about a story of you, of a personal improvement, about how you've improved your personal capabilities as a speaker, and you will relay that information further down towards the speaker. Yeah, you must, good speakers do it by, you can see how that is pointless, is unhelpful, and it's patently wrong, because you cannot speak about the world, you can only speak about yourself. Maybe you're also a very knowledgeable person, but you're still an individual. There's nothing collective about this. It's an individual providing feedback to another individual. So these are really the things that you see in the bottom in that previous slide and this one. These are the no-goes of an evaluator. Never go there. Because this is unhelpful. It's not going to get you much friendship from the speaker you're just evaluating. That's for sure. Then to close on the 10 behaviors. Give positive reinforcement in your evaluations. When you saw something, remind of what you saw. Good uses of English, good phrases that you've heard, good movement, good use of the voice. Those are positive reinforcements if you recount them in your evaluation. Again, that might be a good way to open. And for those who were here last time, when Karina opened her evaluation, she used verbatim a phrase that I have said in my speech, and she used that as a way to introduce her evaluation. So she basically went back to one of the things I said, took it verbatim, and used it to introduce her evaluation. That's part of the sandwich technique, right? Build a motivational plan. Again, this goes in your favor if you have something a little more difficult than normal to say in the middle part of your evaluation. Don't just throw it like that. Acknowledge that there's been something that could be improved within the speech, because probably everybody else saw that too in the room. So be honest, say it. But say it in a way that takes the good that was there and makes it so that moving forward, that was just something that happened on that evening, and how about if you follow this, it means that you can improve for next time. I'll give you a good example about this. I was mentoring a guy who then later became the president of the EPFL club. And he was very keen on doing speeches. And I said, okay, there's an evaluation contest. You've not done your icebreaker yet, but you're so keen and you seem to be getting it so nicely. Do you want to do your icebreaker in front of them? I challenged him. Sometimes I can be pushy. And he said, sure, yeah, no problem. It was in a different club, a different room, and he'd never done a speech. It was his icebreaker. And I kind of challenged him, knowing that things might go a little different than what he had planned, because he was too secure of himself. So I let him do it. So he begins a speech, and then after 30 seconds, he stops. And he doesn't know what to do. He's stuck, completely stuck, for a minute, which is not easy. Not easy, especially for the poor evaluators which were in a contest and needed to deliver evaluations to him. But this is real life. He overachieved. And it was interesting in the contest to see how they would actually motivate him onto, hey, look, you got stuck, we all did. And, it's okay. It's not a problem. So that motivational factor onto realizing that these things can happen. But you're in a good environment, you're in a spot where it's okay, it's not a problem. And that's the key behind, motivation. Again, evaluate behavior and not people. That goes back to what we said before. Disregard what they think, what they, the context, the specific content they use. Put that aside. Focus on the tools. Focus on how they spoke. That's what we do. Nor self-esteem, we've seen that, and show the speaker how to improve. This is your personal experience as typically a more experienced evaluator. If you have something practical that you can share, and we've seen it, move on stage more, use your voice a lot more than you do. Those are examples that very nicely fit within an evaluation. I don't think this is rocket science, by the way. I think this is just very basic things that nicely put down in slides, but they all make a lot of sense. Now, we're getting to the bottom of the prepared part, and I would like then to have a little discussion. But remember that you, the speaker, when you are a speaker, you do have some things to take care of yourself for this magic to happen. Communicate your goals clearly. So one of the things that we never do, for instance, is to help the Toastmaster of the evening introduce the speech. You know that when you create a speech request, there is a field which says, how would the speaker be introduced by the Toastmaster of the evening on the day before a speech? Very few use that field. It's there to be used, but how come nobody, or almost nobody, uses it? I do. It actually gives a little more context, and it also gives a hint to the Toastmaster. The Toastmaster says this is like, they need to think about how to introduce speakers. Do I just introduce speaker because I know them and I say something funny, and then they come on stage and I shake their hand? Or do I want to say something more? Because you know what happens in the real world? when you are presenting at a conference or someplace, they ask your bio, or at least a couple of bullet points, so that the master of ceremony that introduces you on stage says something about you. And when I was the master of ceremony for the 25th anniversary of Toastmasters in Italy last year, I did exactly that. There were a number of people who I have no idea who they were. I chased them individually and asked them a few questions. Just, what can I say? You know, what do you do exactly, and all of that. And I created my own list of things that I would say while introducing them for the speech on stage. That's proper management of, well, in that case it was a full day event, but even at a normal Toastmaster meeting, if you, the speaker, can do something and clearly tell the Toastmaster of the evening what your objectives are, your goals are, then please, by all means, Easy Speak is there for that too.
Luca, will you need somewhat, because most of the time the Toastmaster, before the speaker will start, the Toastmaster will first ask the evaluator, can you briefly tell us about the objective of the speech? And the person will say maybe 2 or 3 sentences about the objectives, and we get a hint about what we're going to be presented with.
True, but one thing is the project's goal related to the pathway project that the speaker is being prepared. Another thing is the introduction to the speech. They are two different things. Now, in terms of practically how can one do it, I would think that first you would have the evaluator declare what is written in the project. So what are the effective, measurable goals that the speaker has as per this project. And then you would introduce the speaker with the 2 lines that the speaker gave you on Easy Speak related to the speech. So if I want to, say something about aviation, because it's one of my big things, Luca is a commercial pilot, has been flying for many years, and in the speech he will be speaking about, it's the other door, Juliet? Juliet?
Yes?
You're going down his dungeons, but that's not, it's the door there. So that will help smoothen the introduction that the Toastmaster will have for the speaker with the on stage. It's a proposal, again, these are things of, just preparing the seminar gave me a few tips, a few ideas myself, because it's something that I've never thought about in many ways. Okay. Help the evaluator prepare. Again, speak to them, connect, help them by saying exactly what you're aiming for with your project. Now, prepare diligently. I had the harshest time as an evaluator when it was obvious that the speaker had not prepared a speech. I'm not saying it's infuriating, because that's a little too much, but it's a drain. And you could see it, and it's very difficult, and in some cases I had to be harsh, because it was obvious that it wasn't. And then it turns out, yeah, I prepared the speech on the train coming here. Okay, we could see that. It's good that you confirmed it, but it was pretty obvious. How do you deal with that? It's tough, but sometimes people do not take their time to prepare their speeches, and I don't think it's the best that people will do it, especially towards the other comments. You don't want to be on stage and look like a fool without having been prepared. It's something that we should always be extremely careful in avoiding doing. Empathize with the evaluator. As a speaker, what does that mean? Well, you know who's evaluating you. You've spoken to the person. Acknowledge the person a little more. He's going to be evaluating you. But it's more about being open to the evaluation and being truthful to yourself, being truthful to who you are. It also goes, of course, with everyone within the room. But the evaluator will be the person that will give you directly on the stage the feedback about how to improve. So that opens that channel of trust that makes a group of people within a club really improve and go to a level beyond. Because clubs only improve when there's good cohesion, when there's good, it's not only feelings, when there's good alignment of needs and values within the group of people. And again, this is totally separate from the topics that we speak about within the speeches. This is more about how we use the tools that those masters gave us. Help the evaluator improve. How? Again, if you want to be looked at specifically at some factors, some things that you want to learn more, the evaluator will give you feedback, but that will also mean that the evaluator will need to challenge himself or herself out of the comfort zone. That requires, of course, a little coordination before if you want to do it properly. And I think the best would be, of course, having at least an email exchange with the evaluator before the speech. Okay. Prepare to change. Guess what happens if you feel that there's nothing I can do to change things, and I hear some feedback, and the following time at the next speech I'm still going to be doing the exact same things and nothing will change? Well, we're here to improve, right? So it's up to the speaker to decide what to do with the feedback. Now, it could be that in some cases he would disagree with what the evaluator would say. Sure, no problem. But think that maybe if the evaluator said that, there could be a reason for that kind of feedback to come. Go back one-to-one after the meeting and speak to the person and try to understand what happened. And I'd love to see, and I'm seeing it already happening, I'd love to see more one-to-one meetings between speakers and evaluators immediately after the speech is done. As I said before, that is the proper way to conclude the feedback session between the speaker and the evaluator. There's no other way. Because on a one-to-one basis, you can go a lot deeper. You do not have a timer that shows you color cards. And it will actually make you say some things to the evaluator. Hey, what I meant was that. And the evaluator will say, yeah, but what I understood is this. How about if you would have said things like that? That goes back to the whole idea of not only the tell and sell, but the receiving feedback, which takes longer, but it will be an opportunity we have. I'd love to see more of that. I'm seeing it, don't get me wrong, and I like to stick around until the very end, so I see lots of little groups that create at the end of meetings. Okay. Now, as an evaluator, and this is the final slide, as an evaluator, how can you change your behavior? Well, decide what you want to change, for sure. Let me actually get to some examples. I think there are some examples here. I think there's no correlation from what I read here briefly. This is the part that I think needs not only the involvement of the evaluation with taking the role of evaluator, but also the involvement of the evaluator with the essence of what the club is about. In that, as an evaluator, you have more control than as a speaker. You're hearing, you're then relaying your information, but you also go back to the evaluation being so important to keep the club cohesive and running. So, if you do not recognize the benefits of change, you're not doing well as an evaluator on stage, because change is what we're talking about. That's obvious. Okay. So change also means that you can improve as an evaluator. Change also means that that feedback that maybe the general evaluator should give to evaluators could be better used. Again, general evaluators could go one-to-one with individual evaluators, and anybody can feed the information back with the slip. Is also good for evaluators, of course. Okay? And put the change into action. If you get feedback as an evaluator and then you do nothing, then that's too bad. Nothing happens. Okay? But make it a habit. Make it something that keeps going. And make it a habit to me also means I don't have a role tonight. How come? I want to have a role. I want to be an evaluator as a minimum every other meeting. I love that there is a fight to get onto the role of evaluator and to know that between now and the next 2-3 meetings, every single evaluator role is full, is taken. Because that improvement that you get as a speaker, you get it twice in a way as an evaluator. For all the things we said tonight, including how tough it is, how difficult it is to be empathizing with the speaker, to be giving that positive feedback in spite of a dreadful speech, which can happen. So as an evaluator, that is something quite important to do. Okay. Never stop improving. And you know what? As an evaluator, you will also improve